Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Pulse, where we take a close look at what's happening across real estate markets in Greater Vancouver, the Fraser Valley, and beyond. I'm Brittany Reimer, and joined once again here by Alan He, and this month we're excited to also be joined by Taylor Mousseau, Executive Vice President for Alberta and Okanagan. Now, we're on location today at 1333 Bertram in downtown Kelowna, Mission Group's newest purpose-built rental community. Leasing is now underway with studio homes starting from just $1,500 per month, and we're filming from our display suite on site here. You'll also note we have some fresh wine from the Okanagan. This is a tradition now for us to come up every year in July and just really enjoy Kelowna, everything it has to offer, get out on the boat. I'm super excited for that, but also really excited for the wine.
I feel like we just continue to do the boat and the wine, and I'm going to see you guys more and more, which I love.
Oh, for
and
sure.
I love that that's become the tradition, so I'm glad I can bring that to the party. As Kelowna's first and only concrete purpose-built rental community, 1333 Bertram sets a new benchmark for rental living downtown. It offers contemporary homes in the heart of the city, just steps from the waterfront, restaurants, shopping, and everything that makes downtown such a vibrant place to live.
And it's more than just the location. Residents have access to amenities like fully equipped fitness center and outdoor terrace, creating spaces to relax, connect, and enjoy downtown living beyond just their own suite.
Yeah, it's a great example of how purpose-built rentals continue to evolve, delivering not just well-designed homes, but complete lifestyle communities in some of the region's most desirable neighborhoods. So with that in mind, let's take a step back and see what's happening more broadly across the market.
Yes, let's get into pre-sale market. Britt, what did June actually look like across Greater Vancouver and the Fraser Valley?
So June was actually a busier month on the supply side. 5 projects came to market across Greater Vancouver and the Fraser Valley, bringing 196 new homes to buyers. That puts June in line with March as one of the more active supply months that we've had so far this year, which reflects the seasonal pattern we would typically expect to see heading into the summertime.
And how did that absorption land against that supply?
Yeah, same month absorption came in at 7%, still meaningfully below the 5-year June average of roughly 25%. We are seeing more product come online, but the pace of buyer decision-making has still really not caught up. Now, the story is fairly consistent with what we've been talking about all year here on The Pulse. Supply is focused on the townhome product, with one wood frame condo project coming to market in the month of June, which we did mention in our last episode for June.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Britt. Anything notable on those June launches where they were concentrated?
Yeah, the Fraser Valley led the month in terms of both the number of launches and total units. Surrey specifically had a couple of notable projects that came to market, along with launches in Coquitlam and Langley. So we are continuing to see supply concentrated in some markets where end users and affordability is holding up.
Right. And Taylor, let's bring the Okanagan into this. What are you seeing on the pre-sale side up here?
Well, Kelowna and the broader Okanagan have been very quiet on the new launch side this year. To be direct, as I usually am, we have not seen a single new product launch in Kelowna through 2026, and it's been crickets on that front. But the deals are still happening at least one of the projects. That happens to be ours at Movala. Phase 1 closed in the fall, and we're getting ready to welcome Phase 2 owners this summer. The project was named 2026 Georgie Award for Best Multifamily High-Rise Development. So the buyers who are looking to purchase are looking at purchasing completed product.
Yeah, and it was so great to see their team win that award at the Georgie Awards. I mean, Stover Group has such a great reputation in the Kelowna market and throughout British Columbia, so everybody was really excited.
And
it was so well deserved.
It was. That project has been such an uphill battle for them. There's been change of team. There's been multiple market cycles. It was really great to see them get a win there, and well deserved. It's such a stunning project.
And so, Taylor, what is the bigger picture on Okanagan demand right now?
Yeah, I would say the buyer profile up here has definitely leaned towards the end user and the downsizer over the last year and a half, with a healthy layer of out-of-province buyers still in the mix. That's held fairly steady through this year. What has changed in a meaningful way, I would say, would be the policy side of things. Effective June 1st, Kelowna is no longer subject to the province's blanket short-term rental ban. The province granted the city a slight exemption to the BC principal residence requirement, which means short-term rentals like Airbnbs are now permitted in a handful of multifamily buildings that carry the short-term rental zoning and chose to apply for the exemption. This is definitely a shift for buyer economics or any project sitting on the short-term rental eligible zone, and I think it's a signal that we're going to be talking about a little more in the second half of this year.
And I totally see this as a positive move in the right direction. The principal residence requirement was a meaningful constraint on the pre-sale market when it was implemented, so this should help improve buyer sentiment. So what are we forecasting for next month in Metro Vancouver, Britt?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully a little bit of the same of that. It would be great if we could lift
fingers
that
crossed.
same band, but not likely to happen. Now, July is forecasted to be a lighter month. 3 projects and roughly 69 homes, all townhomes and mostly concentrated in the Fraser Valley, with projects across Langley, South Surrey, and one in Coquitlam. That is a step down from volume in June, which is consistent with the seasonal pattern, but what really stands out is how it compares to the typical July. The 5-year July average is closer to 927 homes coming to to the market versus just 69 units forecasted this year. That works out to be 93% below the seasonal norm.
Wow. And Taylor, anything expected on the Okanagan side in July?
Nothing confirmed for July in terms of the new launch side yet, so the quiet pattern is set to continue. But we are watching closely to see how the short-term rental framework starts to influence developer thinking heading into the back half of the year. I've recently had early conversations with development groups who own parcels in hotel-zoned areas that are starting to consider picking pencils back up and starting to move towards early project planning.
Yeah, the through line between all markets remains the same. Developers are staying disciplined on supply, and the projects that are coming to market are being priced and packaged for the end user. The cohort is actually, transacting. We're seeing in the market right now.
Makes sense. Well, now let's move into resale. Did June actually deliver a real shift in numbers in any regions, Greater Vancouver, Fraser Valley, or even the Central Okanagan?
So there was a bit of a shift in the Greater Vancouver market where 2,300 sales were posted, up nearly 10% year over year. The first meaningful broad gain in months, which was nice to see. And it is broad-based. Detached townhomes and apartments all posted year over year gains, which is the first time we've seen that pattern in a while. Now, the board's economists called it an early sign of a shift in the market. One could hope.
One could hope. And the Fraser Valley?
Yeah, the Fraser Valley posted just over 1,100 sales, up slightly month over month, but still down 4% year over year. So the two boards are telling slightly different stories this month, which was really interesting to see. The board framed the Fraser Valley as becoming more affordable, but with buyers still holding back.
Right. And how about the interior, Tay?
Well, the residential sales reached a little over 1,500 in June, up from 1,450 in May and up 3.8% year over year. When looking at the Central Okanagan specifically, sales totaled 458, an increase of 6.3% compared to last month and a 9.8% compared to last year.
And similar to the year-over-year increase we saw in Greater Vancouver, how does the inventory picture look heading into the summer, Britt?
Now, both regions saw active listings hold roughly steady month over month, and both are now sitting below where they were a year ago. Greater Vancouver is down about 3% year over year, and the Fraser Valley is down 4%. New listings continue to run below last year's pace across both regions, which suggests sellers are pulling back rather than going ahead and testing the summer market.
And so the supply is not really adding any pressure at the same rate it was earlier this year?
Exactly. Standing inventory is no longer climbing, and if the pattern of stronger demand plus slower new listings continues, we could start to see inventory drift lower over the summer. That said, both regions still have inventory well above the 10-year seasonal norm, so the market has plenty of breathing room before we would talk about tightening in any meaningful way at this point in time.
And on the interior side, Tay?
Yeah, on the interior, a similar trend played out with a steeper year-over-year shift. Active listings totaled 9,800 across the region, down 7% from the same time last year, though up from May's 9,400. In Central Okanagan specifically, active listings totaled 3,100, a 1.5% increase from last month, but nearly 13% down from this time last year, reflecting a market where supply remains super tight relative to historical norms, even as a month-over-month inventory ticks up.
And how about the pricing?
Yeah, so Greater Vancouver's composite HPI was essentially flat month over month, down 6% year over year. The board said prices haven't moved much because inventory hasn't been able to absorb the demand. Now, Fraser Valley continued to soften with the composite benchmark down nearly 1% month over month and down 7% year over year. Benchmark prices in the region are now sitting about 26% below the 2022 peak. So Greater Vancouver's price picture is stabilized while the Fraser Valley is continuing to just drift down the river.
Oh, I
grab
feel
your
that.
life vest. Floaters, grab your life vest.
Zip up.
If you watch
I
Big
feel
Brother,
that.
oh.
Well, Britt, it is a similar story in the Central Okanagan where pricing trends dipped across category year over year. Single family home benchmark prices fell again, 1.6%. Townhomes dipped another 1%. Condominiums saw the steepest decline at 3.4%, coming in at an average of $495,000 purchase price.
Wow, sounds like the same story across the board, hey? So now let's switch gears and head into the rental market.
Yeah, that means you, Alan, you're up here. Now walk us through what June delivered on the rental side.
Absolutely. June delivered 6 purpose-built rental completions, bringing 677 units to market. Same month lease rate across the building came in at 18%. Now, two things stood out this month. First, one concrete completion made up nearly 50% of the completed units last month. And second, same month lease rates picked up meaningfully compared to what we saw in May, which is the seasonal pattern we would typically expect heading into the summer.
Anything notable on where the demand was concentrated?
Yeah, absolutely. Vancouver West Side carried the bulk of the new supply this month, with multiple buildings completing across that submarket, and leasing activity across the West Side has held up better than we would have expected given the volume that came online. The tenant pool coming through this month has been the same profile we have been describing all year. structural movers, timing decisions around the school year, job changes, or lease turnover. And with summer leasing now underway, tour activity has picked up compared to the spring.
How does this shape up compared to the Okanagan, Taylor?
On the Okanagan rental side, we've had a handful of new completions come to the market this year in Kelowna, all of them being wood frame. 1333 Bertram is actually the first ever concrete purpose-built rental in Kelowna. I'm excited to talk about that a little bit later. On the supply side, more broadly, apartment completions through May in Kelowna are already close to 2,000 units versus roughly 3,000 for all of 2025. Delivery has been running at a faster pace this year over last. That has shown up clearly in vacancy. CMHC's most recent vacancy print for Kelowna sits at 6.3%, up from 3.6 a year earlier and well above the 1.3 we saw in 2023. The market has moved into a more balanced territory than we've seen in a long time and continues to move towards a slight oversupply.
Yeah, and this mirrors what we've seen play out in Metro Vancouver, where purpose-built rental has increasingly taken over as a dominant form of new construction. The Okanagan appears to be following a similar path, with rental now accounting for a growing share of the multifamily starts as developers pivot away from presale condos to the softer, with a softer sales environment to rental. So what can we expect for next month and completions in Metro Vancouver?
Yes, July is on track to bring another 6 completions with roughly 892 units coming to market. So the summer completion wave that started in June is continue right through July. The mix in July is again a combination of concrete and wood frame, with wood frame taking the largest share at this time. So we are looking at back-to-back month of meaningful new rental supply hitting the market.
Now that back-to-back pace really underscores how active rental delivery has become. It has us wondering, zooming out, how have the rental rates and numbers in the Okanagan shifted over the past 5 years?
Yeah, from 2020 to 2025, the number of purpose-built rental units in Kelowna climbed from 7,400 to over 10,000, an increase of nearly 45%, underscoring just how quickly the rental sector has scaled up over a relatively short window and reinforcing the shift towards rental as a growing share of the city's housing stock.
Wow, and speaking of supply increases, we teased more details on Bertram earlier, so let's get into it.
Excited to jump into it. Taylor, walk us through 1333 Bertram. What is the headline on the story on this one?
Oh, I'm so excited, Britt. The headline is that 1333 Bertram is Kelowna's only purpose-built concrete rental tower. In a market where nearly all rental supply has been wood frame, this concrete is a major distinction and a big-time differentiator. Leasing is now underway, and we are already seeing meaningful interest from both the local community and prospective renters coming from out of ownership. We've seen strong early interest from the retiree demographic, an audience drawn to the freedom that comes with renting, no maintenance, no strata fees, and none of the responsibilities of home ownership, paired with a high-quality building that doesn't ask them to compromise on comfort or lifestyle.
Yeah, you can definitely tell when you walk through this building just how great the design is, location, look around, it's beautiful.
And honestly, more and more, I see that old people who sell their homes don't want to buy again. And they just end up renting the top floor unit with the best view. And, that's what we're going to do until their next step in the journey, I think.
I feel it's a shift in general, right? People are choosing to rent as a lifestyle play, and it's no longer they're renting until they can buy. They're choosing to release home ownership, and they want to rent, and they want to have the access to amenities and location that buildings like this offer.
Yeah, and what will be interesting is how do developers start to tailor product or cater to that demographic, right? It's always been very tricky in the past to program that type of offering, but it'll be interesting to see with the rental demand now if it's something that can be integrated on a different scale and with a different product form.
Yeah, totally agree.
What does the concrete construction mean practically for someone moving in?
Yeah, that's a great question. It shows up in 3 places. First, definitely the sound insulation. Sound between suites and floors is meaningfully better than what a wood frame construction building would bring. And secondly, I would say the interior temperature stays much more consistent through Kelowna's burning hot summers and the cold winters. Third, the building itself is built to a standard to outlast wood frame by decades. For someone who's moving out of their house or into a condo, the transition into renting here feels like an upgrade rather than a step down.
Yeah, and the views are pretty great too. The location, speaking of location, what makes downtown Kelowna the right spot for a concrete rental tower, Taylor?
Oh, easy. This building sits on a quiet residential street in downtown Kelowna. You are away from all the noise, but still within walking distance of Okanagan Lake, the waterfront, Bernard Avenue, all the restaurants, cafes, shops, the bars that you might see us at. It is what I would call a downtown location that does not feel downtown. The best of both worlds for a resident who wants urban walkability without having to live inside the busiest and most chaotic parts of it.
Any standout features specific to this site?
Oh, how do I narrow it down? There's quite a few worth calling out, but I will hit the main points. A large number of our homes offer gorgeous, unobstructed lake views of Okanagan Lake, which is a rare offering, especially in the local rental market. The building is also pet-friendly with a dedicated pet wash station, an amenity floor, which is an extension of the home, and on-site direct access to the waterfront and trail network right from your door. And on the developer side, Mission Group, of course, is one of Kelowna's most established and renowned developers. Their portfolio includes projects like Bertram, Brooklyn, and Aqua. So if you're renting here, you're renting into a track record built in this city.
Yeah, and great property management, right? A local development team that has deep roots within the community. They care about the tenant experience. They care about, the experience people are going to have living in their buildings. And so I just don't think that's something that you can expect as like a standard in other places. That in itself is so great.
Yeah, I think you can feel that woven through the building and through every intentional design element and how the experience is when you work with Mission Group. And we're really proud to be working alongside with them.
So it sounds like this building has a full package. How can any viewers that might be interested in this building find out about us?
1333 Bertram is now leasing. Tours are available 5 days a week, or we can accommodate by appointment. We are very excited to welcome prospective residents into the building.
Thanks, Tay. Honestly, if being in this suite hadn't already sold me on the building, that just did.
Definitely. If I was going to Kelowna, I'd be here. Now, Alan, let's move into the rental tracker, looking at purpose-built rental apartments and investor-owned rental condos that have completed within the past 5 years. Where did June land on average for rent and price per square foot?
Average rent across the tract submarket landed at $26.78 in June, essentially flat compared to May. Price per square foot held steady around $3.90 per square foot. The story continues to be that asking rents are holding firmer than they have been in a long time. Landlords are leading with incentives rather than dropping the asking rent, which means effective rents are typically sitting about 5 to 10% below the listed rent, depending on the building.
How would you say that pattern is showing up on the ground?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think asking rents have really just tracked sideways, and that's the first time this has happened in a long time. After a quarter of softening through Q1, June continues the steady pattern we saw in April and May.
And in Kelowna, where do median rents currently sit, Taylor?
According to Zemper, which tracks rental rates across all product types and building ages, median rent in Kelowna currently sits at just over $2,025 a month, a 7% decrease year over year, with an average rental price per square foot of $2.72. This marks a notable shift from the tight conditions of recent years, giving renters more negotiating power for the first time in a while, as new supply continues to work its way through the market.
Yeah, and the story doesn't look much different in Metro Vancouver. Asking rents have also been trending lower over the past few months. You know that.
Yes.
Very well, right?
Yes, very much. And rents across the tract cohort are actually up marginally over the past 3 months. Believe it or not, up about 0.5% and down only slightly over the past 6 months. So the decline pace has continued to flatten, and over the quarterly window, we are now essentially at neutral. At the sub-market level, downtown Vancouver reclaimed the top spot from North Vancouver this month, and Richmond continued to post meaningful gains on both 3 and 6 month basis. Suburban markets like Surrey and Langley were the softer end of the leaderboard. Now, the one thing worth watching heading into the next month is whether the June and July completion waves, particularly the concrete building landing in Vancouver West, shift the listing mix enough to move the sub-market average next time we look at this.
It's interesting to see Metro Vancouver essentially flatten out while Kelowna is still working through a steeper correction. Both markets are being shaped through the same underlying force, a wave of new completions moving through the system, giving renters definitely a lot more room to negotiate. Honestly, the difference really comes down to timing and scale. Vancouver's rental base is larger and more mature, so a similar volume of new supply gets absorbed with less price movement, whereas Kelowna's smaller base means their same completions show up much more dramatically in numbers.
Yeah, that is a great point, Taylor, and it feels like that's the perfect spot to wrap this month's episode of The Pulse. Thanks so much for joining us. Taylor, it's always a pleasure to sit down with you here in Kelowna. Thank you so much for having us.
Happy to keep you both around. Summer is here and it's hard to beat. It's been great to be part of the conversation. I always love spending time with you both. Kelowna has its own rhythm, but through the lines, it's the same thing across the province.
Absolutely. So with that said, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and check out our newswire for the daily real estate roundup. Looking forward to getting on the boat today, guys. Enjoying the afternoon, experiencing everything that Kelowna has to offer.
Absolutely, and thank you for tuning in, and see you in August.
Well, cheers to that. Cheers.
Cheers.